Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakaacharya Ashtottara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrind Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay. We are continuing with a reading from Canto 1. This is chapter 9, titled The Passing Away of Bhishma Dev. We are on text 4 today. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Okay, this is text 4. Drishtva nipatitam bhumao. You might have to pick it up in your Veda base. We don't have that here. This is Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 4. Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 4. Drishtva nipatitam bhumao divaschutam ivamaram pranemu pandava bhishmam sanugha sahachakrina. Drishtva nipatitam bhumao divaschutam ivamaram pranemu pandava bhishmam sanugha sahachakrina. Drishtva nipatitam bhumao divaschutam ivamaram pranemu pandava bhishmam sanugha sahachakrina. Please chant. Drishtva nipatitam bhumao divaschutam ivamaram pranemu pandava bhishmam sanugha sahachakrina. Drishtva nipatitam bhumao divaschutam ivamaram pranemu pandava bhishmam sanugha sahachakrina. Good job, Aurav. Patitam bhumao Divaschutam ivamaram Pranemo Pandava Bhishmam Sanuga Sahachak. Hari Bol. Wonderful. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is the word for word translation. Drishtva, thus seeing, Nipatitam, lying down, Bhumau, on the ground, Diva, from the sky, Chutam, fallen, Iva, like, Amaram, demigod, Pranemu, bowed down, Pandava, the sons of Pandu, Bhishmam, unto Bhishma, Sa Anugha, with the younger brothers, Saha, also with Chakrina, the Lord carrying the disc. Translation. Seeing him, Bhishma, lying on the ground, like a demigod fallen from the sky, the Pandava king Yudhishthira, along with his younger brothers and Lord Krishna, bowed down before him. Please repeat. Seeing him, Bhishma, lying on the ground, like a demigod fallen from the sky, the Pandava king Yudhishthira, along with his younger brothers and Lord Krishna, bowed down before him. Purport. Lord Krishna was also a younger cousin of Maharaj Yudhishthira, as well as the intimate friend of Arjuna. But all the family members of the Pandavas knew Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord, although conscious of his supreme position, always behaved in a humanly custom, and so he also bowed down before the dying Bhishmadeva as if he were one of the younger brothers of King Yudhishthira. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namahom Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. So the entire Bhagavatam starts with this question, where this question that Maharaj Parikshit is asking Shukadeva Goswami. And what is this question that starts the entire conversation? You know? What is this question? Yeah, what is the duty of human beings in general? What should they do for their welfare, especially for a person who is about to die? This is what is the question that starts off the entire Bhagavatam. And this chapter, the passing away of Bhishma Deva, is a classic demonstration of what a person should do at the moment of leaving the body, and what he should have done before in order to arrive at that position where he is ready at the moment of death to remember Krishna. So Bhishma Dev is there here in his bed of arrows, and the battle of Kurukshetra is done, and Yudhishthir Maharaj is devastated. He really didn't want so much killing and massacre, basically. That's what it was. Millions and millions of people had died in the battlefield. And Yudhishthir Maharaj was feeling very upset and very sad that so many people had to die for him to get the kingdom, that he was thoroughly inconsolable. Although Krishna was staying, right? Mother Kunti was praying so that Krishna would stay for some more time in Hastinapur before going to Dwaraka. And when she finished her prayer, Yudhishthir Maharaj comes. And Krishna, seeing Yudhishthir Maharaj, actually feels lots of compassion for him. He sees how devastated Yudhishthir Maharaj is. And Krishna himself could not console him. So therefore, he took all of the brothers to a person who could actually console them, who was Bhishma Dev, who was waiting to leave his body. This was Bhishma Dev's vow, that because of Bhishma Dev's vow, he could actually get this boon. Bhishma Dev took this vow to never marry, and therefore his father Shantanu Maharaj blessed him with this vow that you can leave the body at any time that you want. This was the boon that he got because of the vow that he took to never get married. So although he was there, like this verse describes, that Bhishma Dev is not in a good condition. It says he's like a fallen demigod from the sky. He's lying on the bed of arrows. He's such an exalted personality, but the way that he was in the present situation was not so great. He was lying on the bed of arrows, waiting for the right time to leave the body. And at that time, Krishna not just brings, you see how Krishna is taking care of everybody. One, he is looking after Yudhishthir by taking him to Bhishma Dev. On the other side, he is also taking care of Bhishma Dev himself, because Bhishma Dev was fighting on the other side of the Pandavas. And he really didn't want to do it. We'll see. During many times during the war itself, Bhishma Dev was saying it's not going to be possible. It's not going to be possible to defeat the Pandavas. And yet Duryodhan wouldn't really accept it and would keep pushing Bhishma Dev more and more and more to say that you're being partial towards the Pandavas. You like them so much, you're being partial towards the Pandavas. In fact, Bhishma Dev was the one who protected the Pandavas when they lost their father at a very young age, and he was taking care of them so much. And at one point in the war, it became the Kauravas were basically getting devastated. So many people were getting killed left, right, and center. And at the end of the day, Duryodhan actually was very, very badly wounded, injured. So he's there taking care of his injuries, and Bhishma Dev comes there, and then he gives him some herbs to get better. And then Duryodhan is very upset at this point. He's saying, how is it possible that in my side I have Bhishma, I have Drona, I have all these incredible warriors, and yet we are being devastated by the Pandavas? And he is trying to reason it out with Bhishma Dev. And Bhishma Dev is saying, in so many times he has said this during the war, and now also he's saying, you just don't understand. There is no way we can win this war because Krishna is there on the other side. And I'm still trying. It's not that I'm not trying, not win the war for you. But then Duryodhan doesn't accept it. He's saying, you're being partial. You're really being partial. So if you really can't fight for us, you better stay. Let Karna go. This was the pact that they had, that Karna would not enter the battlefield till Bhishma Dev was there. So Duryodhana was poking him. This is the Kshatriya blood. If it's insulted, it boils, basically. So Bhishma Dev was really, really insulted by this statement of Duryodhana. And he says, okay, now I'm going to try my best. I know it's still not possible, but I'm going to use all my powers to try and win this war for you. And then he takes 5 silver arrows and then imbues it with Vedic mantras to make it really powerful, and says, tomorrow will be the day where I kill the 5 Pandavas with these 5 arrows. It's either has to be that, or if I'm not able to do that, Krishna will have to take up his weapon. This was the vow that Krishna had made also, that in the battle he will not participate. He will not lift the weapon. That was Krishna's vow. So Duryodhana, not being still trusting of Bhishma Dev, says, it's amazing that you have these 5 arrows now. Let me hold it for you. I don't want you to hold it. Let me hold the arrows for you, and tomorrow I'll get it during the battle. And then he takes it to his tent, and then this is the evening, and then in the Pandava side, Arjuna is a little, the Mahabharata describes Arjuna is staying a little further away from the Pandavas, a little sad, because so much devastation is happening, and Krishna sees him, and then says, Arjuna, don't worry, you're going to win this battle. Arjuna says, I don't know how, especially the day before, Bhishma Dev was fighting incredibly. It was not that the Pandavas didn't have losses also. But Krishna reminds Arjuna of one favor that Duryodhana actually owes him. So some time back, Arjuna actually saved Duryodhana from Gandharvas, who were captured Duryodhana actually. And Duryodhana said, okay, thank you for saving me. I owe you one. You can ask me for anything that you want. But Arjuna at that time said, okay, he never thought he would ask anything from Duryodhana of all people. He said, when the time comes, I'll ask you, and he just laughs it off. Now Krishna reminds of that incident to Arjuna and says, I want you to go to Duryodhana and ask him for the 5 arrows that he has. So Arjuna comes, and then Duryodhana in a sarcastic way tells Arjuna, have you come to say that you're not going to fight? If you say that, I'll give you the battle. I'll give you the kingdom for yourself, Just say that you don't want to fight, and then I'll give you the kingdom. But Arjuna says, no, that's not what I've come here for. I've come here to take the 5. You actually owe me one. You remember that I saved you from the Gandharvas? So you said I could ask you for a wish. And the wish that I want to ask now is that I want the 5 arrows that you have that Bhishma Dev gave you. And Duryodhana was devastated. He knew it was done. So he took the arrow, and then we know what happened next. The Bhagavatam will describe also in detail. The next day, even though this was Bhishma's vow that he was going to kill the Pandavas, he fought incredibly valiantly. And the Pandavas basically on the verge of devastation, especially Arjuna. He lost his chariot, so much arrows on him. And at that point, Krishna finally says, enough is enough. I really don't have to keep my vow, and takes the wheel of the chariot and starts running towards Bhishma Dev. And at that point, Bhishma Dev says, now it's done. This is what I wanted. Krishna broke his vow. I'm going to drop my weapons. He puts his bow down and then folds his arms in front of Krishna. So this was Bhishma Dev. This was the personality that they were going to meet. This was an exalted devotee of the Lord. This was a Mahajana. Prabhupada quotes this verse very often, right? Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhaya mahajano yena gatasya panta. That tarko pratishthat shrutayo vibhinna. That's how this verse starts. That by mere logic, it's very, very difficult to understand what is the right thing to do. In fact, two people, if they don't have two differing opinions, they're actually not respected if they are saints or so-called sadhus. But yet, he says dharma. It's very difficult to actually ascertain what is dharma and what is adharma. So therefore, the right thing to do is to follow in the footsteps of Mahajanas, or exalted devotees of the Lord, of whom Bhishma Dev was one. Among the 12 Mahajanas, Bhishma Dev is one such Mahajana. So therefore, Krishna has brought the Pandavas, especially Yudhishthira Maharaj, to come and listen to Bhishma Dev before he is going to leave the planet. He knows the time is near. He is waiting for this auspicious time called Uttarayana, where the sun moves to the northern hemisphere. It's a very auspicious time. So Bhishma Dev is waiting for that auspicious time, and Krishna is bringing Yudhishthira Maharaj to hear from Bhishma Dev. Actually, Bhagavatam describes the most important things that was there in the conversation. In the Mahabharata, it's a very elaborate conversation. And one thing that was born out of this conversation between Yudhishthir Maharaj and Bhishma Dev was the Vishnu Sahasranama. It is at this point that the Vishnu Sahasranama, Bhishma Dev recites this. And this also starts with a question, right? Kimekam Daivatam Loke, Kimvapekam Parayanam, Stuvanta Kamkamarshanta, Prapnur Manava Shubham. This is the question that Yudhishthir Maharaj is asking Bhishma Dev. Kimekam Daivatam Loke, Kimvap Ekam Parayanam. Who is that one Lord that we should take shelter of, and whose name should always be chanted? Stuvanta Kamkamarchanta Prapnur Manava Shubham. By chanting whose names, that the entire Manava, the entire human society can gain all auspicious. Manava Shubham. And Bhishma Dev recites the 1,000 names of Vishnu, which we know as the Vishnu Sahasranama, which is the Yuga Dharma also. So this was how exalted Bhishma Dev was. No ordinary personality. But here in this situation, we can also see how Krishna is acting. Everybody knows, Prabhupada says here, that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. And yet, he was behaving like human-like. What was so human-like about this action was, although Krishna being the supreme personality of Godhead, was bowing down in front of Bhishma Dev. This was the Lord of his heart, right? Bhishma Dev really was waiting not just for Uttarayan, just to see Krishna in front of his eyes so that he can leave his body by remembering Krishna in front of him. He knew this was his Lord, and yet Krishna was behaving as a human in the sense of following etiquette. Prabhupada writes that Krishna was younger than Yudhishthir Maharaj also. So therefore, along with the Pandavas, Krishna was paying obeisances to Bhishma Dev. Krishna actually says this in the 3rd chapter, the question that arises from Arjuna. This is what is the beginning of the 3rd chapter. Arjuna is asking, at the end of the 2nd chapter actually in the Gita, Krishna says, use your intelligence, Arjuna, Buddhi Yoga. He talks about this. And Arjuna is actually a little confused. He really wants to get out of the battlefield and just be. And Krishna has been asking him to fight. And now suddenly Krishna seems to say, use your intelligence. So Arjuna thought, okay, should I act? Do you really want me to fight? Or do you want me to renounce? And that's what he wanted. He wanted to renounce everything and go. And this is the question that he asks in the 3rd chapter. Krishna, do you want me to act? Or do you want me to renounce? What do you want me to do? And Krishna says, actually, you should not renounce. You should act. Actually, he says both. You should act but renounce. This is basically what Krishna says. And he says somebody who is actually trying to renounce in this world is a hypocrite because you cannot do it. You cannot just not act in this world. And yet, he's been hammering this point throughout the Gita that you have to do your duty, you have to do your duty, you have to do your duty. And yet, for one person, Krishna actually gives a free pass. That such a person really doesn't have to perform his duty. Do you know who that person is? The entire Bhagavad Gita, the question is dharma, right? Just like how the Bhagavatam's question was, what should a person do at the time of death? Especially a person who's going to die. The question that triggers the Gita is Karpanya dosho pahatasva bhava prichami tuam dharma samuda cheta. Krishna, tell me for sure what I should do, what is my duty. This is the entire subject matter of the Gita. And yet, for one person, Krishna says, you don't have to perform your duty. Who is this person, you know? Not Sita Prajna. For somebody who is actually satisfied by his self-satisfied person. Krishna says, for such a person, he doesn't really have any duty to perform. And yet, he says, such a person still acts, performs his duty perfectly. Why? Because yadyat acharati shreshtas tadat evetaro jana. Sayat pramanam kurute lokasta tanuvartate. This is why he says that even though they don't have any duty to perform, but practically because they are self-realized, still they perform their duty. Why? Because common men follow what great men do. They listen to what great men say. And so, the greatest of all personalities in this world is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, which is what he continues in the 3rd chapter, is that I myself don't have anything to perform, any duty to perform, and yet I perform my duty diligently, impeccably well, Krishna says. Why? Because if I don't perform my duty, people will start following me. And if they start following me and not perform their duty, the world will be put into ruination, Krishna says. So therefore, Krishna is very, very particular about etiquette or achar. This is what, when Sanatan Goswami meets Rupa Goswami, he is glorifying Rupa Goswami. He says, some people follow achar perfectly, but they don't do prachar. Some people, they do prachar, but they don't do achar. Prachar means they preach, but they don't really follow the etiquette. But Haridas Thakur, you are the best among all people because you follow both achar and prachar. You're perfect in your etiquette and you're perfect in your preaching. Therefore, you are the best among all human beings, he says, all devotees. Therefore, you are worthy of being the spiritual master, Sanatan Goswami says. So like this, Krishna is very, very particular about following etiquette. And here, the etiquette is, the Vedic etiquette says, you have to bow down before your seniors. And Bhishma Dev was much older than Krishna, although Krishna was the Supreme Personality himself. Krishna is bowing down before Bhishma Dev. Not just this in this one instance that Krishna does it, right? In so many instances in which Krishna is perfectly following etiquette. This is outside Vrindavan, of course. Inside Vrindavan, Krishna is completely different. But Krishna, you can see that when one instance I remember at least is when Sudama Brahmana comes. Actually, before even that, we can even say when Narada Muni is there in Dwaraka. Narada Muni wants to see Krishna. He has this 16,108 palaces. He wants to go and see what Krishna is doing there. And then he goes to every single palace, and Krishna is there in every single palace, right? Then what does Krishna do? Narada Muni is there. And then immediately after seeing Narada Muni, he gets up from his throne and then pays obeisances, gives him a nice seat, and then he actually bathes his lotus feet. He does this for Narada Muni because etiquette-wise, Krishna was a Kshatriya and Narada Muni is a Brahmana. Therefore, he has to follow the etiquette. And Narada Muni is seeing this. He knows this, that, oh, this is my Lord. He doesn't really have to do it. But both of them have an understanding, actually. The Bhagavatam says Narada Muni knows that Krishna doesn't have to do this, and Krishna knows Narada Muni he doesn't have to do this to Narada Muni, but both of them agree that this is for the people. When people see this, they will actually know how to actually behave right. And he goes even a step further when Sudama Brahmana is there. In fact, they are peers. In Narada Muni, he was more in societal status, he was on a higher platform. But with Sudama, they were both friends. They went to the same school together. And yet when he comes, it's just incredible how Krishna is just at the door of his palace. He doesn't ask anybody to bring him up. He could do this. Right? And yet Krishna sees him from the balcony, the Bhagavatam describes, and then goes running down because he recognizes his friend, and then takes his arm and takes him to his palace up, gives him a wonderful throne, and then bathes his lotus feet and just doesn't stop at that. The Bhagavatam says he takes the Charanamrita and puts it on his head of Sudama Brahmana. And then gives him clothes and the paste, sandalwood paste, and he personally goes and brings everything from inside. He doesn't ask his thousands of servants that are there in the palace to do the job for him. And the Bhagavatam describes the daily activities of Krishna in one of the chapters, I think chapter 84 or something like that. It describes how Krishna was perfectly following every single regulation and etiquette to the hilt. He would wake up early in the morning, although he was there with Rukmini Devi in the bed. At the time of the Brahma Muhurta, Krishna would be awake. Of course, he would meditate on himself because he didn't have anybody else to meditate on. He would meditate on himself. For us, we meditate on Krishna. And then he would do his daily morning duties. And then he would go to his assembly, and in the assembly he would first give much respect to the Brahmanas in the assembly before continuing his daily work. Like that, Krishna was just perfect in demonstrating how we have to follow etiquette, because it is a very important, it says it's the ornament of a Vaishnava. Achar is the ornament of a Vaishnava. Okay, in the beginning we might not be able to, we are given a long rope, right? Okay, you get first accustomed to the process of Krishna consciousness. But then all these actually help us get stronger and stronger and deeper into the practice of Krishna consciousness. In fact, Chaitanya, when Krishna came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was exhibiting it like didn't even have 0.0001% leeway in terms of following etiquette. Especially even when he was in the Mahaprakash Leela. This was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu usually didn't express himself as God, right? He was also always in the mood of the devotee. And yet at this one instance, Mahaprabhu wanted to actually show his supremacy. This Mahaprakash Leela, where he was calling all his devotees and giving them everything that they wanted. And at this instance, Murari Gupta, it is said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he was called. And Murari Gupta knew that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the Supreme Personality. And there Nityananda Prabhu was also there. But first, he paid obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Krishna himself. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not actually happy, it says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was upset because Nityananda Prabhu was actually older than him. And yet Murari Gupta, instead of paying first obeisances to Nityananda Prabhu, paid obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even when he was trying to exhibit his Mahaprakash, his entire opulence like that. So this is what is recommended for all of us, is that both of them have to go hand in hand, Achar and Prachar, just like Haridas Thakur. Prabhupada writes that he was chanting 300,000 names a day. So his Achar was just perfect. But at the same time, he would go door to door with Nityananda Prabhu to preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He just didn't say, oh, I'm going for Prachar so that I don't have to chant my rounds. He was just pakka in both his Achar and Prachar. And this is the jewel, crest jewel of all Vaishnava qualities. So these are some of the thoughts on this verse of Bhishma Dev, and we can say so much about Bhishma Dev, actually, such an exalted personality. And we'll see throughout this chapter how this is he perfected. Basically, the result of Shravanam and Kirtanam is Vishnu Smaranam. Right? And we'll see how incredible Bhishma Dev's Smaran was at the time of leaving the body. Because he remembers every single detail of what he saw, how he saw Krishna in the battlefield. He would remember which hand the whip was on, which I forget now, but Bhishma Dev clearly remembers on which hand he had the whip, which hand Krishna was holding the reins, and how his beads of perspiration were falling on the face of Krishna, how the dust from the battlefield was on the face of Krishna in very, very wonderful ways. So this is the goal for all of us, right? We're hearing about the wonderful pastimes of Krishna so that we can speak about the pastimes of Krishna and glorify the pastimes of Krishna, and eventually we can start remembering these pastimes of Krishna. Prabhupada goes in detail on all these steps in the Nectar of Instruction, text 8, in his purport, on the different dashas actually. This is the essence of all instruction, Rupa Goswami says, right? Tannama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtanano Smrityor Kramena Rasana Manasi Niyojya Tishtan Vrajet Tad Anuragi Jananagami Kalam Naye Dakilam It Upadesha Saram. The essence of all instructions is Tannama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtanano Smrityor Kramena Rasana Manasi Niyojya. Always, 24/7, we keep remembering the name, form, activities, pastimes of Krishna. And in this way, we are staying in Vraja, he says. Right? We are, at least in our mind, we are constantly in Vraj or Vrindavan. So this is the essence of all instruction. So Prabhupada says, how does this happen, this remembrance come about? Is that the first thing to come up, to get us to this point of remembrance, he says, is Shravana Dasha. The first thing is actually hearing. In the beginning, the hearing is actually not so good. We zone in, zone out, we're not able to focus. And we don't even have much taste for hearing in the first place. And yet, if we persist hearing about Krishna, then it comes to the point, I think Prabhupada says, Varna Dasha, where the hearing becomes constant. We are able to hear, we get a taste for hearing Krishna's names. And then this actually moves into Smarana. And then in Smarana, he goes through five steps. If I remember right, I think it's, first is recollection. First, whatever we hear, we are able to recollect. That's the first step. And then we're able to actually absorb ourselves in it, meditate, and eventually it goes to Samadhi. I forget one of the steps that are there. Hmm? Nididhyasanam is one of the steps, no? Which is recollection and absorption, no? Nididhyasanam. Correct, correct. So the five steps are there. This is the purport to the nectar of instruction, text 8. But eventually, we get into samadhi, where we are constantly being absorbed in the remembrance of the pastimes and activities of Krishna, which Bhishma Dev was. When the time was right, after speaking to Yudhishthir Maharaj and consoling him and saying, it's fine, um, uh, you can rule the kingdom. It's okay, people have died, and he's consoling him. And eventually, when the time comes, he switches off. You should see. He says, the man who fought thousands of battles, it's a very famous verse, I forgot. It's a very nice description of Bhishma Dev, actually. He says, I'm done, now is the time. And then he starts going inward and starts remembering Krishna in very, very specific ways. This is how remembrances of all devotees are, right? If it doesn't say Krishna is great, they exactly remember what color dhoti Krishna wears, what shaped earring Krishna has, how is his curly lock of hair falling on his cheek. They go into such detail on the remembrances of Krishna. And all this starts with Shravanam. And then once we hear very attentively, and then we start glorifying Krishna, Kirtanam, naturally this Smarana starts awakening in us. And Bhishma Dev exemplifies this in this chapter of how incredibly detailed we can remember Krishna at the moment of death. And in that way, we go back home, back to Godhead. That we are there personally with Krishna the minute we leave our body. Yeah, so we'll stop here. If there are any questions, comments, or reflections, or other instances that you remember of, you want to bring the mic, please? Of Krishna behaving like an ordinary human being.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much. Two things I was thinking. The first point, when you were talking about the Achar, the etiquette, about Nityananda Prabhu and Mahaprabhu. This is Ram Leela, where Ram comes to help Sugriv, and he honors Ram, Sugriv, but does not recognize Lakshman. And Hanumanji realizes it, and so Ram was given a seat, not Lakshman. So Hanumanji, being the Murari Gupta, Nityananda, and
Yes.
Mahaprabhu, that he gives a seat to Lakshman, and he was sitting there. And then when Sugriva, first time he goes, he was totally beaten up, properly bashed, right? So, and he comes back and says, no, you did not save me. And he realizes that, then he says that, I mean, I don't remember the story as is, I'm butchering, I might be like, paraphrasing it, but what the essence was, like, he asks Sugriv to garland Lakshman. And then when he goes back, and then he wins. So even in that Leela, he doesn't, like, God does not like us when we straight away try to go to him, because Nityananda Prabhu is the Guru Tattva. Yeah. So if we ignore Guru and directly try to go to Krishna is something I was thinking that.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can look at that way also. But the Chaitanya Charitamrita there specifies, I think he was older than him. It doesn't bring the Guru Tattva there in that. But that's true also, of course, without the Guru's mercy.
And the other thing that you were saying towards the end, that how advanced devotee should be, this Chaitanya Charitamrita verse, right? Stavara jangam dekhe na dekhe tar murti sarvatra hoy nija ishtadeva spurti. Like, once the translation is beautiful. It says the Mahabhagavata, the advanced devotee, certainly sees everything mobile and immobile, but he does not exactly see their forms. Rather, everywhere he immediately sees manifest the form of the Supreme Lord. So that's the sign of an advanced devotee. We're thinking of that.
Yeah, very nice.
This is this is Madhya 8.274.
This is Madhavendra Puri.
Yeah, no, we are reading Ramananda Rai, and
Ramananda
8 is, Madhavendra Puri is 6 or something.
Yeah. And even more advanced than that, Prabhupada says, is the mood of the Goswamis, where they're saying, Hey Radhe Vrajadevike Chalalite, Hey Nanda Sunokuta. We're not even saying Krishna is here. It's like, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Constantly in this mood of separation. It's even more advanced than that, Yes, bro.
since you're glorifying Bhishmadev, I was just thinking, I have two questions. Question number one is, when we talk about nectar of devotion, it's the science of devotion, right? When you talk about science, that's the whole good in all circumstances, at all times, right? Just thinking, since the process that has been given to all of us is Adho Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, right? So I was trying to correlate this to those times when the Yoga Dharma was Dwapare Parichaya, worshipping the deity,
Can you hold
deity
it?
worship, right?
Yeah.
So, how do we understand? Question number one is, he is one of the 12 Mahajana, Swayambhu Narada Shambhu Kumaro Kapilomani. So, when you analyze these characters, either they're born like Prahlad was born in the womb, and since that time itself, he was imparted into the science of Krishna consciousness, right? Bhakti. So, question number one, can anyone share if anyone knows about Bhishma Dev? Of course, he's a glorious son of Mother Ganga, right? So, I would like to know about that. And number two, when you say Mahajano Yana Gata Sapanta, you have to follow in the footsteps of the Acharyas. How do we understand what he did? He's definitely a great soul, and all glories to him, right? But when it comes to the pastime of Mahabharata, it is, of course, orchestrated by Krishna. So, but specifically talking about following in the footsteps, he sided by Dharma,
Yeah.
right? And in that Asat Sabha, what happened? How do we understand that? That's the question.
Phew. You could have gone easy on me. At least the first question is, I think Bhishmadev was one of the Vasus, right? There are 8 Vasus, which are, I think, the elements, the sun, the moon, like that. They're all sun god, moon god, like that. So Bhishmadev was one of the Vasus, and I think it's Vashishta. They had a Kamadhenu, right? If I remember right, and the Vasus were kidnapping or just stole the Kamadhenu, and they got a curse. And Bhishmadev was, I think, the chief of the Vasus or something. So he got a curse saying he has to live the longest. Everybody else were just they can be born and they can immediately go back to their situation. So that's why when Mother Ganga, she would say, "You cannot ask me" or something, and then Bhishmadev, I forget the details of it, but Bhishmadev was one who had to stay. So he was an exalted personality like that, but he was cursed. And like we see in the Bhagavatam, the curses are not really curses, right? So they are at a advanced stage, and when they get a curse, they advance even further, like the Manikuvara and Nalagriva also. So that's the first part, if that's what you were asking.
Now it's working.
The batteries, probably. No, I think it's the batteries. Yeah. No, I can repeat. You say? Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Correct. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That propels him to the position of a. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Um, yeah. Yeah. Even for Prahlad, see what we are seeing here is a frame. If you look at it like a movie, right? We're coming in and seeing a frame, and even Prahlad, I think there is a backstory where this is a devotee who's done incredible austerities to get to this position. Of course, he gets the association of Narada Muni. So I really don't know the backstory of Bhishma Dev to see why he came to this position. But this is the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam, is it shows the exalted position of a devotee. Like you won't see this in the Mahabharata, for example. If you see how Bhishma is described in the Mahabharata, he's a great warrior, his exalted personality, all that is fine. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, it basically tells you why he is a Mahajan, in the sense of the relationship that he had with Krishna. In fact, it says it were like they both were fighting, they shooting arrows at each other. They were like two lovers bites or something like that, right? Or two people throwing flowers at each other. So this was the relationship. It was so mature in love. That's why he is a Mahajan, right? We can at least see that the title in itself was not something that was a honorific title that was given to Bhishma Dev, because he was so advanced in his relationship, in his practice of devotional service, that Krishna was personally present, and Krishna had a tear when Bhishma Dev left his body. This was who Bhishma Dev was, right? So in that way, he was definitely in the position of a Mahajana. And for the other one that you were asking, I think is even the glory of every single devotee in Srimad Bhagavatam, I think except Prahlad Maharaj, probably might be a exception, is that they have a fall. And how they come back gloriously after they've fallen is the story of every single devotee in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? You see Dhruva, that he is completely in this material consciousness. I want a kingdom greater than my great grandfather. That doesn't stop us from saying Dhruva is an exalted devotee. What does he do with that desire? Who does he approach even with that desire? And how glorious does he become even after having a so-called fall? Right? The same with Gajendra, right? He thinks, oh, I am the king of all these she-elephants, and I can do things on my own. And then finally he realizes it, and then surrenders to Krishna, and then becomes glorious. Even Nalakuvar and Manigriva, like we can see, right? They were like naked in front of Narada Muni. That's how inebriated they were. And yet, they're glorious because they get darshan of Krishna. So, that is what I think is the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam, is where we can all relate. If everybody was just a perfected soul, how can we even have any hope for all of us? This is what Bhagavatam is telling us, that it doesn't matter which position you are in. Akama sarva kamova moksha kama udaradi. It doesn't matter what you want. If you tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purushaparam. That if you can practice devotional service, then you can go back to Krishna. You can develop this relationship with Krishna, which I think is the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? It doesn't just give. Even Daksha that we read, right? He's still exalted, but there's still shade of grey that's there. And this is precisely the point that Krishna is demonstrating in the Gita, is that this place you can never win. There is no way you can monkey balance in the material world. There will always be things that you might do wrong, like Bhishma Dev did. There might be always things that you do right. You can never try to balance things here. So therefore, dharmam su shakshat bhagavad pranitam. We try to do what Krishna is asking us to do. If we try to do exactly according to the codes of dharma, sometimes one dharma supersedes another dharma supersedes another. It's context sensitive. It's a very complicated situation to figure out what is the right thing to do at any moment of time. So therefore, Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Paridyacha. You don't even try to get into that area. Mamekam Sharanam Raja. And that from that perspective, then things start becoming easier, because we give that weight to Krishna. I'm not trying to hold the weight of figuring out what to do and what not to do. And I'm just saying, Krishna, you tell me what to do. Or we go to the spiritual master and say, you please tell me what to do. Follow in their footsteps. And then things get much, much easier. This is the point. The entire point of the Gita is this. Is Krishna is going through all these nuances to ultimately say, it's a very difficult thing. You just surrender to me. Yeah. I don't know if that answered you, but some thoughts that I had. Any other questions or comments or? Yes, Mataji. I'll repeat the question. The mic is not working. Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
Context of death. So many other responsibilities. What are some indicators where we get pointers that, especially not knowing when we're going to die, like when to switch gears and when to go full speed, when to figure out all the others, logistics in life. So, like, if you look at Bhishma Dev's life, it looks like everything was perfect.
Yeah, actually not. No, he went through a lot. Actually, his life was not very perfect. um, yeah, I at least two things come to my mind. Um, one thing that Rupa Goswami says is Atyahara Prayasasya Prajalpo Niyamagraha Janasangasya Laulyamcha Shadbir Bhaktir Vinashyati. He says six things that completely destroy bhakti. The first of which is Atyahara. So our primary goal in life should be to perform devotional service. Of course, we have other responsibilities, right? We are doing other endeavors. But it should not become over endeavor. When it becomes so much that we're not able to focus on bhakti. That's the point we know that we have to throttle back. That I'm not really giving so much to my practice of devotional service, and instead I'm over endeavoring for something else that's not so important. We throttle back. And the other thing that I can think of is Krishna's promise for all of us. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam enamam upayantite. Krishna says, for Tesham Satata Yuktanam, for those who are constantly connected to me, Bhajatam Priti Purukam, who are worshipping me with loving devotion, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam, I give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. And this is demonstrated in the Bhagavatam. We'll actually see in the future chapter. When Krishna was telling the Gita to Arjuna, Krishna's message to Arjuna was, perform your duty, go and fight. I want you to go and work. Right? The same message when Arjuna recollects when Krishna has left the planet, what is it that he's getting out of it? It's time to retire. You see, the actions are exact opposite from the same message. Right? Arjuna is hearing the Gita. At that point, what Arjuna is doing is acting on behalf of Krishna. And the same message, at a different point of time in his life, when he's hearing the same message, the action that he's doing, that Krishna is impelling him to do, is now it's time to quit. It's done. You've done everything that you have to do. Retire. Give the kingdom to your grandson and retire. Right? So this is the nature of spiritual message, is that when the time is right, Krishna will reveal to us what we have to do, as long as we're constantly looking out for it. And of course, it's a general question, right? And if it's specific, we need to get into the specific circumstance of what is required at that point. But in general, this promise is there from Krishna that Dadami Buddhi Yogantam, that he will give us the intelligence. It can either come from within, from Krishna, from the spiritual master, from the devotees, from our Sangha. That is why it is very, very essential that we have some really close association where we can have Dadati Pratigrihnati Guhyamakyachi Prichati Bhungte Bhojete Cheva. Some loving exchanges with devotees. A few devotees with whom we can share our mind, who can actually know what is right for us, what is not right for us, and guide us from that perspective. And as we advance, we can actually start hearing Krishna saying from within, Jitatmana Prasantasya Paramatma Samahita, that we are in touch with the Paramatma at some point, and Krishna can guide us from within. But till that point, we have to take guidance from people on specific circumstance. But this is there. Krishna is promising every single time, don't worry, I'll take care. But our main duty, I think, is to prioritize bhakti. If we do that, Krishna will help us. As long as it doesn't go into atyahara, we continue performing our duty, keeping devotional service as the main activity, then everything else goes okay. Any other thoughts or reflections on this? Yes, Gokulananda Prabhu. You might. Oh, it's gone also. Yeah, it's back.
Just a random thought. I was thinking about the offenses, right? Karmana, manasa, vacha, the physically assaulting any devotees. Now, you look at the Mahabharata battle. Arjuna, a great devotee, is shooting arrows to another Mahajan, right? And they're just assaulting, killing each other. Then we also see the point that comes to my mind is, it is not just the act itself. There are other factors also that are taken into consideration. And the first and foremost factor is the service to the Supreme Lord.
Mm.
They were all engaged. They were playing their roles in the, in serving the Supreme Lord's desire. And it is the time, place, situation, and the intent and the service. These are the things. Also in the Chaitanya Lila, we say Govinda, he was trying to cross over the body,
Yeah.
right? When it comes down to service, it is not just the act,
Correct.
right? So that could be probably imbibed within our
Yeah,
practice.
it's a consciousness basically on how we are doing what we're doing. Okay, we're way over time. We should stop here. Thank you all so much. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
गणेश